the most overrated players in the NBA right now. So in this one, we're taking a look at this Bleacher Report article that I saw someone post. Haven't looked at the players yet on the list. And then at the end of the video, I have some players that I think are kind of overrated in the NBA. But to me, kind of an insane article for someone like Bleacher Report to put out. You know, you probably wouldn't see ESPN putting something like this out for a site that's trying to give reputable news. Kind of seems crazy to me just for the views, but I guess it is what it is. So obviously we see Jonathan Kuminga up here, but let's get down to the list. I don't know what number he is on the list. Yeah, so he said in here, you know, I really hate doing this, basically. So like, why do you even do it? Just for the views? Because, you know, for like a small YouTube channel like me or my NBA newsletter, you know, I think it's fine for someone like that, but a reputable site and brand, I don't know. Jonathan Isaac is number one, overrated. I mean, my guy just hasn't even like played. So I guess if you're talking about, you know, games played, minutes played over the past 5 years, then he's definitely overrated. But when he's in the game, I think he is actually underrated. He's like one of the best defenders in the league. And I mean, this guy has insane takes about stuff. I'm pretty sure he's had flat earth takes and was like a C-word denier, and didn't he had like the controversial, like everyone on his team was taking a knee and he was standing up, but I mean, he can do whatever he wants, I guess. So looking down, nutshell case, per minute impact only goes so far when the minutes don't add up. Yeah, so don't expect him to play more than 15 to 20 minutes per game. The injuries, obviously, so okay, if we're talking about the injuries and all that, so he got a 5-year, $84 million extension, which is not terrible, kind of a lot, honestly, for a guy with so many injury issues to give him a 5-year deal like that, but it is at a good price. I do want to see his stats here, so he only played 58 games this year, which is kind of surprising. I thought he played more than that. 6.8 points, 16 minutes per game. So, I mean, you would like to see him play over 20 minutes per game. And I kind of forget what the Magic roster, I think it's essentially the same. In the playoffs, he played 21 minutes per game. You know, the impact he's going to make is defense and knocking down threes. Shot 37% from three. Obviously, the defense was there, 1.3 blocks, almost a steal. To me, not overrated, I guess, if you're just talking about injuries. Jamal Murray. Okay, he was guy on my list. My reasonings here before we get into their reasons are, I don't think he's been an all-star. I didn't look it up, but I don't think he's ever been an all-star. He's had, you know, pretty average regular seasons in my memories as well. I also didn't look up his stats on regular seasons. And like 2 good postseasons. That one in the bubble. I don't know if you remember that series against the Jazz when him and Donovan Mitchell, Murray had 2 50-point games and I think a 40-point game in there. It was absolutely crazy, but just so inconsistent. Had a terrible playoffs. I think he shot like less than 30% from three and like less than 40% from the field in the playoffs. And now averaged 5 points a game on Team Canada. And now is up for a contract, which they haven't given him yet. So we'll see what happens. I mean, where would he be without Jokic? Okay, well, this is... So I kind of agree and I kind of don't agree that he's overrated, even though I just gave some reasonings. This statement actually... I mean, where would he be without Nikola Jokic? So if you took Jokic off the Nuggets, I'm sure that Jamal Murray would average 25 points a game in the regular season and basically would be like, you know, Kemba Walker was on the Charlotte Hornets or something like that. But for a second best player on a championship level team, you know, you want him to be more consistent. He obviously had a great playoffs when they won the championship, but last year was terrible. So somewhat agree with that. Miles Bridges, overrated. I mean, okay, a lot of people hate him because, you know, his off the court issues, but if we're just looking at him as a basketball player, I would say, okay, kind of overrated, but I don't think people rate him super high to begin with. I want to say he averages around 20 points on bad teams, so we haven't really seen him on a good team that I can remember. I'm pretty sure he's just been on Charlotte his entire career, and I think they just did re-sign him. You know, we probably won't see him on a good team for a while, but I think he could be good on a solid playoff team. Like, if the Lakers got him, they kind of need a power forward. I think they're looking at Jeremy Grant. If they got Miles Bridges, I think he would be good on a team like that. So looking at his numbers, they said 20 points, 3 assists, and 50% of his field goals, or of his 2-point field goals, and guards some of the best front court players. So, they're kind of making a case here for him to be underrated, but obviously hasn't won anything, so I guess that's the only issue. He can't be the best player on your team, probably not even the second best player. Like with him, LaMelo Ball, maybe Brandon Ingram will be that second best player. He could be the third option. I actually kind of like Charlotte this season to make the play-in and possibly the playoffs because they are going to be streaky, but do have talent if LaMelo and Miller and Bridges can all stay healthy. In the East, that's kind of a pretty solid trio, honestly. So I think Charlotte's actually one of my sneaky teams. I disagree with that. Jalen Green, overrated. I think he's underrated, actually. This guy, has it been his third year in the league last year, or is it just his second? I think it was his third, but he had some crazy moments at the end of last year, especially. And I kind of wish they just didn't get Fred VanVleet because this team is so young and VanVleet is getting older, which doesn't really fit this team's timeline. And I kind of wish they just gave Jalen Green the green light last year and didn't get Fred VanVleet because they didn't make even the play-in, I don't think, last year. So I guess they're saying he had a terrible start to the season, then averaged 27.7 points in March, and he had the league's second highest plus-minus. So I guess they're just saying he's not consistent, but he's only been in the league for 3 years, and one of them obviously was a rookie year. This year they went out and got VanVleet, which I don't think helped him. So I think he's actually underrated. If I was making an underrated list, he could be on there. He has all the talent, just has to put it together for a full season, I guess, is their only gripe on him. But I think after just 3 years, it's a little too soon to call him overrated. And I kind of hope they just get rid of VanVleet so they can go with the backcourt of Jalen Green and Reed Shepherd. I think that would be really fun for next year, and they might even be better with Shepherd in there alongside Jalen Green. Okay, number 1, Jonathan Kuminga. If the Golden State Warriors just give him consistent minutes, I guess that might be why they're saying he's overrated, because the team just doesn't ever want to give him consistent minutes. So essentially the Warriors are saying that he's overrated here, but I don't know what all these quotes are here. Yeah, this is a lot of quotes in this write-up, but the nutshell here is we still need more at both ends of the floor for longer. When he plays, he is great. I just hope this year that they give him over 30 minutes a game every month of the season, because if we look at his game log on ESPN, which is pretty cool because you could see their averages for specific months. The last month of the season, it was only 5 games here, but he averaged 26 minutes. And then the month before that, 29, 30, 30.5, 24.4. When he was getting over 30 minutes, 20 points per night, shot 40% from 3. And then even earlier in the season, 19 minutes in November. So, just give him 30 minutes plus per night. Honestly, I kind of hope that the Warriors are really bad to open up the season and Curry gets some kind of minor injury and they kind of just shut Curry down, or maybe trade him to the Lakers to play with LeBron, and then you get a full season of Kuminga, because I really want to see what he can do in very inconsistent playing time minutes. Still averaged 16 points, 5 boards here. And this is only his 3rd year in the league. Just give him the minutes. He can produce when given consistent minutes. We've seen it before. I think he can be a solid defender too if he actually commits on that end. I don't think he's overrated. I think he might be underrated, especially if we can ever see him play a consistent role. All right, so a guy I think is overrated. People don't really talk about him being overrated. Joel Embiid. When he's playing, it seems like only in the regular season. He's MVP type player. He's won MVPs, 35 points per game, 11 boards, almost 6 assists, shoots decent percentages, shot really well from 3 last year, 39%, can knock down free throws, 88%. Obviously great in the regular season. Postseason, terrible. He's been in the league now 8 seasons, and the 76ers haven't made it to an Eastern Conference Finals. If you want to be considered a top 10 player in the league, and you've been in the league for 8 years, haven't made even the Eastern Conference Finals, I don't think you can really be considered one of the top 5 players in the league if you're not winning in the postseason. Then we look at the postseason numbers. The shooting percentage is not where you want it to be at 44%, 43%. I just think you got to win something here if you're Embiid, but obviously the stats are there. All right, the next one is one that should be obvious to a lot of people. A lot of people, flip back and forth between him being underrated and overrated. For a while, it was him being overrated for a long time, and then the Timberwolves were so good this year that it kind of flipped to him being underrated. But I think he's still overrated. He's a great defensive center, but down the stretch, he got exposed multiple times in the Western Conference Finals by getting switched on Luka and Luka hitting shots in the clutch. Basically, couldn't have him out there in crunch time on the defensive end, and that's what he does is on the defensive end. Not a good free throw shooter. In the 60% range is another reason you can't really have him out there at the end of games. But great defender for the first 44 minutes of the game. The last 4 minutes, we've seen him get pulled, and then in the Olympics, he wasn't even playing that much. He was basically the backup center to Wemby. I don't know if they wanted to play 2 centers, if they thought that just wouldn't work with matchups and stuff. If they didn't have Wemby, I'm sure he would have played a lot more on Team France. He was a big reason why they lost that series against Dallas. Okay, another overrated player I'm going to go with is Mikal Bridges. I actually think it's a good fit on the Knicks, and he's in a good situation now. But when he was trying to be the number 1 option on Brooklyn, it was hard to watch last year. He was pretty bad last year as the number 1 player on Brooklyn, and obviously Brooklyn was really bad as well. We saw him average under 20 points per game as supposedly the go-to scorer on their team, which is terrible for a go-to scorer. After last year in 27 games for the team, averaged 26 points a game. People were expecting him to average well over 20. Severely disappointed last year. I think his fit is more like what he was on Phoenix, where, he averaged 17 points per game, shooting a high percentage from 3, almost 39%, knocking down his free throws at almost 90%. I think that's a perfect fit for him. He was basically their 3rd, maybe even 4th option on the Suns. I think that's a perfect fit for him, but as far as star player, I don't think he's ever going to be an all-star type player. With the Knicks, I don't know what option he's going to be. You got Brunson, you got Randall coming back, you got OG Anunoby, you got DiVincenzo still there, and I feel like I'm missing someone else, but he could be easily the 3rd, maybe 4th option on the Knicks. I think that's perfect for him, and we probably will see him average less than 17 points, but I think that's a great role for him. I think he is a very solid role player, not really an all-star caliber type player. That's why I have him as overrated. I think he's a great player, like I said, but just not a star player like people thought he was last year. All right, so that's going to do it for this one. If you guys enjoy videos like this, definitely check out some more. We got 2 at the end cards right here that you can watch. So check one of those out and subscribe to the channel.